Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Manuel Pascual. Pascual was killed on Saturday, September 1st, 2007 in the 9200 block of Depot Street in Southgate, according to LA County coroner records. Jonathan Avila and Jose Avila were subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On September 1st, 2007, co-defendant Jose Avila drove to Southgate to drop off his younger brother, defendant Jonathan Avila, at a party. As they approached their destination, defendant Jose yelled out, "Compton Barrio Tortilla Flats, this is our neighborhood." Jose stopped the car in the middle of the street near a group of 6 teenagers: Jonathan Sedano, Fernando Gutierrez, Fernando Hernandez, Miguel Lorenzana, Hernan Partida, and victim Manuel Pascual, who were gathered around Pascual's car. Defendant got out of the car and asked, "Where's the party at?" When Sedano responded, "Who are you?" defendant punched him. Defendant and Sedano began to fight, and Gutierrez and Partida joined Sedano in hitting defendant, while co-defendant watched the fight from his car. During the fight, defendant took out a curved knife with a 5 to 6 inch blade, swung it at Sedano, and stabbed him in the stomach. After he stabbed Sedano, defendant walked toward Hernandez while holding the knife, and Hernandez backed away. Defendant turned around and approached some of the other teenagers and swung the knife at them. Co-defendant got out of the car, lifted his shirt to reveal his gang tattoos, and shouted his gang name. Co-defendant approached Gutierrez and Hernandez. Hernandez kicked co-defendant in the face and began to fight. Cesar Cabrera, who had been standing on the street corner, approached the group and told co-defendant he should leave the teenagers alone. Co-defendant yelled, "Get the heat," and defendant broke free and ran towards co-defendant's car. On his way to the car, defendant encountered Cabrera and stabbed him in the neck. Defendant reached into the passenger side door, but the victim pushed him away from the car and closed the door. Defendant and the victim struggled, and defendant stabbed the victim 3 times in the abdomen. Partida held defendant in a bear hug and grabbed defendant's wrist. Defendant said, "I'm sorry," several times. When the victim staggered towards his car and fell to the ground, Partida let go of defendant and ran toward the victim. Defendants ran to the car and got inside. The teenagers surrounded the car and hit defendants as they sat in the car. Hernandez hit defendant, who stabbed Hernandez in the right arm. Cabrera grabbed the gear shift on the steering column and tried to prevent co-defendant from driving away. When defendant tried to stab Cabrera's hand, Cabrera let go of the gear shift. Once co-defendant was able to get the car in gear, he drove forward and almost hit Hernandez. Co-defendant then put the car in reverse and crashed into a fence. Sedano and the witness, Andy Reyes, moved out of the way to avoid being hit. Co-defendant drove forward, and Partida moved the victim, who was on the ground near the door of his car, out of the way. Co-defendant's car collided with the victim's car before he drove away. The victim died as a result of multiple stab wounds. Deputy sheriffs collected damaged car parts and blood evidence from the crime scene. Detective Steve Langford interviewed some of the witnesses, and based on the partial license plate number, description of the suspects in the car, Detective Langford determined co-defendant was a possible suspect. On September 2nd, Langford went to co-defendant's address, where a brown Buick Regal was parked. Car parts recovered from the crime scene matched the Buick. DNA evidence showed that bloodstains found in the Buick matched blood belonging to some of the teenagers. Both defendants fled to Mexico, where they were detained in December, deported to the United States, and taken into custody by the Sheriff's Department. LA County Sheriff Detective Paul Marino had been part of the gang unit for 9 years. Marino was part of a task force that focused on the Compton Barrio Tortilla Flats and had testified as a gang expert about the gang. At the time of the instant crimes, there were about 500 documented members and 200 non-documented members of Tortilla Flats. Documented members had been interviewed by officers in the field and included in the gang database. Marino had investigated a lot of crimes in which Tortilla Flats members had committed crimes against non-gang members. Non-gang members were easy targets who didn't have weapons to retaliate. It was common for a Tortilla Flats member to commit a crime with someone who was not a known gang member. Marino knew co-defendant Jose was a member of Tortilla Flats. Following the trial, the jury convicted Jose of 1 count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of assault with a deadly weapon. The jury acquitted Jose of 2 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon. The jury found true the gang and weapon use allegations. The court sentenced Jose to a total of 36 years to life. Jonathan was convicted of 1 count of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon. The jury found true the gang and weapon use allegations. The court sentenced Jonathan to a total of 81 years to life. Manuel Pascual was 18 years old at the time of death.